Hi everyone, we are Woodsy Studio. I'm Malcolm, this is Jenny, and we're going to talk about finishing games and slaying monsters. Because if there's anything that you can say about our studio, it's that we finish games. Just last year we released 2 games. The year before we released 1 and published 1 to Steam. We also last year did Xbox and PS4 ports from our older games. And right now, we're about a couple weeks away from releasing a Steam port of one of our older mobile games. So we get things done. So hopefully,
older is in like a few months old.
Older is in a few months old. Yeah, no, that's where we are right now. And so we just want to give you a few pointers on what we do to make sure that the things that we start are things that we can complete.
The lower left is kind of oh, that doesn't work.
Technology.
We only have 10 minutes, so I gotta get some ready.
Okay,
There we go.
All right. So just as an overview, we all know that there are always going to be very practical concerns that keep you from finishing a game, right? Your budget's getting low. You're not able to hire to get all the assets that you want, or someone on your team isn't delivering the assets that they're supposed to, or maybe it's just full of bugs and you feel like you'll never fix them all, because you won't. But usually, your biggest enemy to finishing a game is yourself, is your feeling that it's not finished. And we've kind of taken that and broken it down into 3 what we're calling monsters that you have to defeat in order to just actually finish your game and put it out there. First one, scope creep. And if you haven't heard that term before, it's just feeling like you have to add more and more features. It's usually even just kind of subconscious, right? You're building the game and you just have this huge vision for it. You keep having great ideas and you want to keep adding things forever. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. 2 is dispassion, and of course everyone struggles with this, where at some point in your project you're just not as excited about it anymore, and it's just hard to motivate yourself to work on it. And then perfectionism, where you just never feel like your game is good enough. So we've broken it down into those 3 categories and how you can try and overcome each. You want to add anything to that?
No. All right. One thing, the reason we're giving this talk right now is that at a game jam, you're going to have about 48 hours to finish a game, and that can seem like a big, daunting task. And we think that one of the most important things is to be ready to face all 3 of these monsters that we've talked about over the process of the game jam in sort of a very consolidated space and time. Normally, you would be dealing with these issues over the period of a year, 2 years, no matter how long your dev cycle is. You're going to face these along the way in like excruciatingly slow real time. Whereas at a game jam, it's going to happen really fast, and you're going to have to deal with it very quickly. So we think it's a good experience for people to do game jams, especially who have trouble finishing stuff, because at a game jam, you have to finish it in 48 hours, and you have to deal with all these things very quickly and sort of come up with your own strategies of doing it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and so for hopefully this video plays, we thought we'd share a game jam that we did a year or 2 ago, where a lot of these issues came up. Here's our trailer for it.
We'll get the music. Oh, yep, there we go. Here we go.
These are my brethren, whom you gods held alive and dead, and for their brethren slain, religiously they ask a sacrifice. To this you Allahs are mocked, and die you must to appease their growing shadows that are gone.
referencing that a lot because we faced all the monsters really badly with this GameJam and had to deal with them. So, starting off with scope creep.
All right, scope creep. Scope creep is not what you do in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds when you're crawling on the ground with a sniper rifle. That's great. That's useful, especially when there's high grass. This kind of scope creep is not good. And this is when you're making your game and you keep coming up with ideas that you want to add to your game. You think, oh, that's amazing. I can add this. That's fantastic. I can add that. It's when you think, oh, I should add a complex AI system to my pedestrians in my flying game, which is like, why are there pedestrians in your flying game? You've already gone past scope creep. And so one of the ways that we think of to get around scope creep and prevent it is we set deadlines for ourselves. We have up here, we say, if your project is small and short, set a deadline. If it's big and epic, set a deadline. If you're working alone, set a deadline. If you're working with a team or studio, set a deadline. And there's a good reason for this, because deadlines force you to either work with what you have or evaluate what you've done so far. They keep you from asking, what if I add this thing? What if I add that thing? If you know that a certain feature or a certain part of your game has to be done in 2 weeks, then you're going to suddenly start feeling really anxious about adding that pedestrian AI to your flying game. And it helps you keep every stage of development fully planned out in your head. And also makes you focus on the most crucial aspects of the development. And we're not saying you should just do deadlines for everything for your whole project. We're not saying because it's a game jam, you're already getting a deadline. One of the nice things about a game jam is that you are forced into a deadline. But we also think that you should have deadlines along the way.
Yeah. Or well, I'll add something to that. Like have deadlines along the way, like the GameJam example. Like one thing you want to do is, if you have to finish the game in 48 hours, you need to think, well, when do I get my prototype done? And you want to have your prototype done about 24 hours in. And after that, because guess what, there will be some things that need to be changed or fixed some more, or it'll just be totally broken, and you need to keep fixing it. And so you already have that first deadline of, I need to get my prototype together. Another really important thing is know your limits. And it can sound cheesy, but you really have to think about yourself and your personal limits and apply that to your project planning and your deadline that you set. It's nice to dream big, but you have to be realistic. Don't plan around a budget you don't have yet. It'd be really awesome if you got that grant and were able to add all these features that you want to add. But don't depend on it. We did a Kickstarter recently that failed, but guess what? We're still going to finish our damn game, because we finish games. Just, don't plan around stuff you don't have. Don't depend too heavily on unstable elements. Getting to know your team members early on is really important, making sure you're all kind of equally motivated. And if not, you need to be prepared for the fact that they might drop out somewhere along the way, that they might not deliver everything that you need them to deliver. So you don't want to depend on them too heavily. Use the tools already at your disposal. And by that I just mean, obviously at the beginning of a new project you might be seeking out some new tools. But again, don't plan around equipment you don't have yet, or I wish I had this office and this great GPU I could work on over here. If you don't have it yet, don't plan around it. And what's really important but harder to do is knowing your personal limits. And a good example of this is like Malcolm and I at Woodsy Studio. We get really excited about things, and that's why we work so hard. And but we know that doesn't last forever. We know that we can't really keep that excitement on a project for like over a year. So that's one reason we know we want to wrap up our projects within a year always, and not let our scope get bigger than that. Because we need to be excited about it, and we don't stay excited for quite that long. If you have a really strict work schedule, if you can only work on your game an hour a day, which certainly happens, think about the tasks that you can break down into that hour and that you know you'll be able to do each day, and plan around that. Again, you can always hope for things, new opportunities to come along, and definitely seize them when they do. Just don't depend on that to finish your game.
And just to add a little to this, like, we're talking largely from a very holistic, game development perspective. You know, when we work on a game, we pretty much do almost everything, just the two of us. And you know, our voice acting we have contracted out, but otherwise, it's pretty much just the two of us. But the same advice will apply when you are a member of a team at a game jam or at a studio or something like that that is very specialized. So if you are just the artist on your team, all this advice can still apply. For example, when we talked about having deadlines for yourself during the game jam, a 24-hour deadline, we said, oh, a prototype of the game, you know, that means from the designer's perspective, you have to have, you know, the code, the art, some amount of that. But from the artist's perspective, you should also be setting yourself some kind of deadlines. For example, if in that game that we saw earlier, the trailer that we showed you, there were, you know, the player character sprite and then the enemy character sprites. By 24 hours, maybe you want to have a deadline on yourself of having the player character sprite done. Because at the very least, at that point, you know, well, there will be something for the player to control. So all these things still apply that we're talking about if you're a small part of the team or if you're the team manager.
Yeah, another example from that game jam is that don't depend too heavily on unstable elements. The two artists we were working with, one, we had two other team members, and one was just totally new, and that's fine, you know, that's totally fine, but he just went in knowing, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, I've barely even touched Photoshop or brought that in to an engine before, and you know, that's fine, just it was good to know right on the bat so that we could plan around that. And then the other artist just knew that he would be really busy that weekend and that he might not have time to work on a whole lot. So we basically planned our game to be very art-light, you know, just that repeating background. The sprite animations were extremely simple, had like 2 or 3 frames. So we tried not to depend too heavily on having a lot of art. All right, and this is really, really important when you're feeling scope creep. You're starting to have all these great feature ideas, and it's getting overwhelming. Stop and think about your core gameplay loop. And the core gameplay loop pretty much always has some sort of prompt, basically seeing an enemy, and you know, in a shooter game, that's going to cause the player to want to do an action, such as shoot them, and they will either do it well or do it badly. That'll lead to a consequence. Either they'll fail and the enemy will overpower them, or they'll win and they'll get stronger. And then there's a prompt again, and it just repeats. So think a lot about the core gameplay loop in your game and focus on that. That is more important than anything. So if your scope creep involves all these features that don't enforce your core gameplay loop, get rid of them. Just always come back to the core loop.
And
just goes into more detail.
This goes into a little bit more detail about that. You know, I kind of like to think of it as a way to, the core gameplay loop is especially important in game jam games because, again, you have 48 hours. There's only so much you can do in 48 hours. You're not going to make a Skyrim in 48 hours. You're not going to make a Grand Theft Auto in 48 hours. You're not going to make something that the primary experience of the game is exploring a vast and world full of a multitude of different objects. That's just not possible. So it's really important to know what your game is about, what your game, the way that your game prompts your player, the way that your game gets them to act, the way that your game gives them some consequences. And the things that you focus on with this is making the prompt clear and succinct, making it very clear what it is that needs to be done. For example, an enemy runs from the right side of the screen towards you left. Anybody who's played a game before probably knows that if that enemy reaches them, a bad thing is going to happen. And you want to make the action that they have to take to prevent that or to accomplish whatever the prompt wants them to do. You want to make the action balanced so that it's not too hard and not too easy. You don't. This gets into possibly thinking about things like hitboxes or things like that. You want to make sure that there is a certain amount of balance where that works out and it makes sense to the player. And the way that you enforce how that action should be taken is through a consequence. When there's a failure, the player should learn why it is that they failed and have some desire to do it again. If there is a success, the player should receive some reward that makes them want to repeat it. So both times, both in failure and success, you're encouraging the player to try again or to continue.
Yeah, and I would say that when it comes down to it, those last two things are just super important. I mean, they're all important, but with our GameJam game that we showed you, I might go back real quick. One thing that happened kind of in that last 24 hours, like when we were realizing we weren't able to make the game everything we initially hoped it would be. So we were like, okay, we just want to make it feel really good when you succeed and make you want to try again when you fail. So, I
can't skip. But we can describe what it is. They saw it.
Sorry. Well, okay, so if you remember, there were like fireworks that went off when you got a certain number of kills, and you're just making it like really satisfying. That's so important to reward your player and make them feel good whenever they succeed. And with the failure, you know, we got, I got a voice actor I worked with often to help us out that weekend. Just do that, you know, maniacal laugh. So of course you want to go back in and punch them in the face. So those two are super important.
And that sort of speaks to what we're suggesting here, which is that let's go back to that 24-hour deadline that we suggested to have your prototype ready. Let's say you've gotten to a certain point in your game, 24 hours in, like 5, 6 o'clock on Saturday on the GameJam. And there are some things that aren't working. There are some things that are working. What you want to do is consider, are the things in the core gameplay loop working? If they are, can I just cut all the stuff that's not working? Because what's great is if you have some scope creep ideas or some things like that that aren't working out, that are failing, that there are bugs on, that you just don't like how they're playing, you can just get rid of them as long as they're not affecting the core gameplay loop. And what that does is it gives you time for the next 24 hours, the rest of the GameJam, or the next part of your cycle of game development, no matter what it is. It gives you time to instead polish the things that are happening in your core gameplay loop. For example, like Jenny said, for us it was adding those particle effects. It was adding a screen shake. It was adding these things that made that loop of running, stabbing, getting killed, or getting kills, getting scores. It made that loop a lot more exciting. And the other ideas that we had about maybe more story or more cutscenes or whatever, well, we were 24 hours in, they weren't working out, we didn't have the art assets for them, so we just cut them and we made something that was a lot more simplistic. And I think that can be a really helpful thought to have as you go along, especially as you hit those deadlines that you set. And you're like, well, I hit the deadline, but I'm not quite there yet. Well, is there something you can cut so you can polish up what you do have?
We should probably go into fast mode.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, slaying dispassion. This is a big one. Where you get to a point where you're just not feeling excited anymore. The most important thing to know is that it's usually, most of the time, it's meaningless. Everyone feels it. It doesn't mean your game is worthless. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean that new idea that you just got in the shower is better than what you're already working on. Go ahead and talk about the next one too.
So, yes.
I might have to go talk about this one. This one's really important to me. The 2/5 stage. It's probably a little bit different for everybody, but this one I always feel, and I feel it in any project. Like before games, I wrote novels, and I would feel this in a novel really, really hard. The 2/5 stage is that point in your game where you've, like the honeymoon phase is over. You're got through like creating those initial assets and setting up the initial foundation and all that exciting stuff about getting started. And you're just like, oh God, now I just have all this work to do. And dispassion can hit really hard right then. It always happens. You just really have to expect it and know that it's going to happen. And when you think of it in a like story format, like a screenplay 3-act structure, it's kind of like you're entering the act 2 of your story, where basically your hero or has made their big decision and started on their quest, and now there are just all these little mini challenges they have to get through before they reach Bowser at the end or whatnot. Like, you have to take your whole big story and cut it down, and it's just hard. So the most important thing to know is that this stage is just going to hit, like, pretty much always, and you just have to push through it. You have to push through it. I think just knowing that it's there helps you do that.
All right, the other spot where you might run into trouble, where we tend to run into trouble, is what we're calling here the 5/5 stage. Now, I'm sure that there are people with math backgrounds out there that are saying, 5/5, you're done. Well, okay, first off, in games, you're never really done. Especially when you've gotten everything completed, there's bugs to work out. But what we're talking about is that last little bit of work that you have to do on the game. And this is really difficult for a lot of reasons. One, scope creep, what we're going to talk about. This is when you're basically done with everything that you really wanted to do. This is when you have completed the project, you've seen it, you can play it, your friends can play it, it all works pretty well. But that's when you start thinking, well, I could add some more to this, because this is basically done. I mean, there's a few more edits I have to do, there's bug testing, there's a little bit more writing I have to do, but I could add a whole other system to this where you go into space and fight some aliens. Now, never mind that you're making a city building game, but that's what you start thinking, because you want to get working on a new project. You want to get working on something new instead of finish this up. But there's other things you have to do. You have to solve those bugs that your friends are finding. Somebody has to figure out how to get rid of them. And it's probably you. It's probably not somebody that you've hired out because you didn't have the budget that you thought you were going to have. And marketing. Now that you're ready to release your game, you've got to start thinking a lot about marketing. You have to think about how you're going to get people to know that this game exists. You're going to have to email press. You're going to have to make a website. You're going to have to make a Steam page. You're going to have to get art assets ready for whatever platform that you're on, whether it's mobile or console or computer.
On a quick note, you should probably start that earlier, but
Yeah.
it just hits hard.
It just hits here. You know, you've hopefully started that earlier. And that requires a lot of work that's going along while you're doing your bug fixing. And this is a really difficult stage because you want to be getting to work on something else, and you can't. And so you have to be, especially here, this is where you have to push through. At the 2/5 stage, maybe there's thoughts of abandoning the project and doing something new. Here, you have to. And this is true of game jams too. I know that there's no marketing. I know that bugs don't really matter in a game jam game. What this stage is in the game jam game is when you have to upload it to the website or make a video or get the executable to run on your computer. And that's a really important thing because otherwise you can't show off your game at the end. And so that's what that stage looks like in a game jam.
And so this is more about outside of a game jam. And if you keep feeling dispassion repeatedly outside of those stages, a lot, most of the time, that's when you need to take a step back and be like, okay, what am I doing? I meant it when I said that it's usually meaningless, but there are times when it's not. And if you are just really miserable on your project, if you're not having fun with it, then your players probably will not have fun with it either. You know, you can always try just taking a brief break, you know, put it aside for a little while, go on vacation, go on a walk, play other games, get inspired again. And if that still doesn't work, maybe you move to a different project. But the point is, you need to have thought, you need to have at least pass through those other phases first before you're like, okay, this is not going away.
And if you're in stage 5, like I talked about, don't move to another project. And that's what we're about to talk about here. Getting rid of your perfectionism.
Yeah.
Perfectionism is great for like the first 95% of game development because it means that you can get things right. But then when you reach that last 5%, or I'm talking about game development or like developing assets for a game at a game jam. Once you reach that last 5%, or once you are about at your deadline, you have to really start reconsidering your perfectionism. Because perfection is impossible. You will never catch every bug in your game. Now, even the biggest, you know, most successful released games have bugs. They have some little thing that was not caught. They have some little idiosyncrasy that has to be patched in on a later date. I know it's like a defeatist thing to say, but you're never going to catch all of them. You just want to catch enough that the majority or the vast majority of your players have a smooth and uninterrupted experience. But there's always going to be that guy who's running some weird Linux driver and everything suddenly goes in inverted colors for him. And you know, I can't run every Linux driver on my, every Linux version on my computer. I can barely run one. So don't worry too much about catching literally every possible bug. And you're always going to see things that you can improve, especially on a project that takes something like up to a year. Because the stuff that you made at the beginning of that year is going to look not quite as good as the stuff you made at the end. And you're going to be really tempted to like redraw it all or remodel it all or something like that. And if you're in that stage 5, it might not be time for that. It might still look good enough. You will never make everyone happy. That's the other thing, is that no matter what game you release, no matter how popular it is, no matter how successful it is, there's always going to be some person who is really unhappy that you got the Brooklyn accent wrong of some character. And you can't worry too much about that. Now, obviously, you don't want to make something that's going to make everyone angry at you. But you also just can't worry too much about getting everything perfectly right. Because if you do, nothing will ever get finished.
Yeah, we don't mean to sound too discouraging, but that you really have to, I feel like that's where so many people get stuck. And you have to realize at some point that it's not going to be perfect. So the main question I just ask myself, did I do the best I can? Did I do the best I could with what I had in this time? And that helps me push forward. And what's going to happen is, you know, because it's not perfect, you're going to have mistakes when you do ship your game. And you can't let the fear of your mistakes paralyze you or keep you from ever releasing something. Because really that's part of the process. You could even say, I'm not thinking of an example at the moment, but in some games, little mistakes and bugs are kind of part of their charm. It's not a great example, but the point is, it happens. And learning from your mistakes is how you're going to constantly get better and how your next game is going to get better. But if you never release that game, you're not going to learn all that you could have from the mistakes that you were going to make. So you just have to push through.
So here's an example of mistakes that add to their charm. Think of Dark Souls. Like, how many people never beat Dark Souls if they don't glitch through some boss? Like, who among us has not sat under the bridge and shot arrows at the Drake's tail for an hour? I mean, that's something that is like is sort of inherent to a really popular series, is that it is a little janky, and that is like part of its charm. And you get around certain problems because the engine isn't quite great at what it does, and yet, you know, that's an incredibly beloved series that has these problems.
Yeah, and this is actually our last slide. So, just again, ship your game. Like, my basic rule is ship your game no matter what. If you think you made a lot of mistakes and it's going to be bad for your brand, then you ship it under like a, you know, alias or something.
She's not kidding. We have Woodsy Studio at itch.io, which is where all of our main games go, and then we have mine, which is redbermenace.itch.io, which is like a weird wasteland of bizarre experimental stuff. But that's fine, because when we make something, it gets put out for people to try it or to experience it, and it's important that you put that out there, that not just out of some greater obligation to provide art to the world, but out of a need of closure for yourself. You've been working on this for however long, even if it's a 48-hour game jam, put it up on itch.io somewhere. It doesn't matter if like only like 3 people download it. It's really hilarious when your like friendly neighborhood vampire game that we have has like 4 YouTube playthroughs for some reason when people found it. That's really funny to me. But it's really great that like, that's out of my life. That's out there for other people to experience. I don't have to keep thinking about working on it. Now, obviously, if you do a commercial game, you have to do bug fixes and things like that. But it is important to get it out there, to release it in some fashion, both because there's some charm in unfinished buggy games, but also just to get beyond it, so you can move on to the next project, and the next, and the next.
I will say, you know, if you think your game, you're like, this game really sucks, you know, maybe release it for free. But the point we're trying to make is you put a lot of work into something. You want to keep getting better. You want to keep making games. If you finish a project, you feel like it's crap, at least let some people play it. learn from it, and you'll always be surprised. Again, like you said, like this GameJam game, that the vampire story got a lot of unexpected love after we posted it. But anyway, I hope that inspires you all. And again, game jams are just the best practice for any of this. Just doing all of this and slaying all these monsters in 48 hours. So, good luck to everyone.
Do you guys want to do questions now, or do you want to wait?
Did y'all? Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Did y'all have any questions about that stuff?
I had a question.
Okay.
So you talked about the game loop. It made me think about that when you brought that slide up. You guys do a lot of visual novels. What is the game loop of a visual novel?
Well, that gets a lot more complicated, but I'd say that generally it's so much of it is within the story. Your prompt is usually, which is how the player interacts with it, a choice that you have to make. And the action is making a choice that's important to the story. In our visual novels, it's so much about building relationships with other characters, or like the series we're working on right now is solving a mystery. So you have to try and ask a lot of questions to different characters. So that's the action that the player has to take. The consequences can be that if you say the wrong things to certain characters, they'll hate you. You'll have a bad relationship with them. You can dramatically change the overall plot by the choices you make by the end. You can have good or bad endings. So it gets harder to figure out with visual novels, but it's still there, and it's just basically making the choices feel good for the player, making them feel involved.
Yeah, it gets a little weirder when, like kinetic novels, which is visual novels that don't have choices. Then you start to think this is just sort of a graphic novel with music, which is fine. But with the kind that we make, it is really just the choice and making the choices feel good. Yes?
How do you guys feel about the game that you made last GameJam? Like, how do you feel about it looking back at it? That one that you showed?
The one that we showed was a couple game jams ago, I think, because that was still GameMaker, and we don't use GameMaker anymore. Well, no, there's nothing wrong with GameMaker, especially for a game jam. If you're making a 2D game in something, GameMaker is fantastic.
Disagree with that statement.
Well, for a game jam. But for what we were doing, we had to move on. I feel like it turned out really well, considering the limitations that we had. This was actually, I've never been that proficient with GameMaker because I started being more full-time when we moved to Unreal. And so we were really working with just one programmer, a couple artists who could only do part-time stuff. And
well, I just did like a little of everything.
And you did just a little of everything, and I did a little of everything that I wasn't good at. So I think that we're really happy with how it turned out. I think that for a game jam game, all you really want is for the first few minutes of it to look exciting and fun, and to have like a cool little intro, enough to make it to show for a few minutes in front of everybody. And I think that turned out really well. It was not something that we thought we would build on to make a full game of. And I know some people have done that with their game jam games. This was not one, and never was intended to be one. So we were happy with how it turned out.
And how are you going to be not bad at things anymore?
Yes.
So I have a question about the success, failure, and the consequence thing.
Yeah.
So I like to make things way overcomplicated, and I'm really bad at making things simple. Like, is there kind of a good, well, first of all, is it good to have a binary success, failure condition, where those are the only two like very clear things, or more like gray in the middle? And like, does that necessarily correlate to difficulty? Like, is it best to start with just binary succeed and fail, or have more stuff? Does that make sense?
Well, so I think of it as the whole point is that you want to make the player repeat the loop. So it doesn't have to be clear success or failure if you still make that loop in such a way that they want to keep repeating it. And that's really the point. Like, I know that Butterscotch Brothers, Butterscotch Shenanigans, they did a really good talk on gameplay loops and how it ties into just how our brains form habits in life, and just how we all, like, our brains just love to form habits and repeat things that they feel like that the brain thinks is a good thing. And that is that can get really complex. Like, we do things in life that aren't good for us just because our brain has gotten in that habit. So it's all about establishing that habit, making the player just want to keep repeating it. Whether it's through feeling good through success and like being able to buy a new gun, or failing in Super Meat Boy in such a way that they're like, oh, I should have tried it like this, so I'll do it again this way, you know, just wanting to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. So
yeah, like failure success is an extreme binary that I think works really well for GameJam games because you're trying to simplify things. But I think in lots of other games, the real thing is there needs to be an outcome of the action. There needs to be something that happens that you're like, oh yeah, I did that, or I failed to do that, or, you know, just something that I did created something different, a result that is interesting. Interesting is probably the better way to put it than success failure. And that's what with visual novels are the choices that you make in our games. There aren't really success failure results. It's just the story changes. Something interesting happens, and you can tie that to the choice that you made, the action that you took. In something like Crusader Kings 2, which is one of my favorite games, like a lot of things that you do don't immediately end, that you do badly, don't immediately end with you being executed. It ends with something else happening, like, oh, suddenly your daughter can't marry into this noble family, or oh, suddenly your brother wants to kill you. Those aren't necessarily success failures, because the reason that you might be playing Crusader Kings is that it's telling an interesting story to you about your character. So as long as there is an outcome to the action that is interesting and that draws the player to want to do an action or a similar action or continue the loop again, that's what you're going for.
In the back?
Okay.
Sorry, just making sure I do that. You mentioned a couple times everything's and setting deadlines and stuff like that. Is there any particular tools that you really like or that you recommend that you use?
There are tools, we don't use them. We're bad at that. I know that they're out there and they're fantastic and they help a lot of people. We've tried to use them and I just forget about them and I just...
Trello?
Trello, yes.
Well, I good for development.
Oh, yeah. Trello is something that we tried for about a week.
Yeah, we're a bad example of this because
yeah.
we kind of function without that, but definitely tools like Trello are really helpful, especially on a larger team. To help you stick to your deadline. You can always just bring an air horn, and if you see somebody on Google, just go in their ear, and you're like, no, you're not drawing, get back to drawing.
We're in a big room this year, so we will hunt you down.
Okay, don't do that this year.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. What can you see? All my it's showing the background. That's not okay. Okay, cool. We're gonna have to. So I think what you'll be able to do is move the mouse over. I don't know how we're gonna hit that thing. Hit the links. Yeah. Okay. I think we'll be able to do it. But I'm gonna have to exit out. Okay. It hit this one when you're ready. Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan Winzen. I work a lot in game trailers. I've over the last probably 6 or 7 years, I got my start in modding, and I developed a mod for StarCraft 2 called StarCraft Universe, which basically made StarCraft play like World of Warcraft. We did a ton of trailers for that game. We kickstarted it. We did an Indiegogo on it, and I've also recently started work for Starburns, which develops a show for YouTube Red called Good Game. And basically we've taken the StarCraft 2 engine and made a fake game for this show that's all about esports development. And we did quite a bit of trailer work on that. So that's my background. I make a lot of trailers and stuff. And so what I want to talk to you guys today about is basically, you know, you've finished a game, you've got past your dispassion part of actually creating a game, and nobody cares. Like, I'm just being real. By the time you've sunk 5,000, 10,000 hours into making your game, you've gone through all this grueling process, still nobody cares. Your parents might care, your girlfriend might care, people at indie game dev meetings might care, but the hard truth is that the world does not care that you made your game. You have to make them care. You have to get your game out there, and you have to market it. And the best, I believe, the single best way to market a game is through a trailer. Websites are great, you know, going on forums are great, contacting the media is great, but the media won't care if you just send them a text document. They want to see a cool trailer. They want something that is going to provide a hook for their viewers, so that they get clicks and they get, you know, retention rate on their sites. And the best way to do that is to make a viral game trailer. So how do you do that? Well, there's no real right answer for that because every single game is different. But we're going to go through the process of making a trailer. We're going to talk a little bit about you know, some philosophical approach on how to do that, and hopefully you guys have a better idea at the end of this how to do that. Cool, it worked. All right, so we'll just go over the anatomy real quick. So this is basically an order of how you want to present your trailer or develop your trailer. The first thing you're going to do within the first 2 seconds is you're going to have your ESRB game rating, which, if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's basically you know, rated PG-13, rated R of video games. You know, if you're making a game that's about decapitating prisoners, you know, little Timmy's mom probably doesn't want to walk in seeing him play that, and she's going to blame all of his life problems on your company if you don't put up your ESRB rating on your advertisements and on your packaging and so on and so forth. And any disclaimers, like if you're doing third-party development, you can put that stuff right at the beginning of your trailer too. Next thing you're going to want to do is your attention-grabbing hook. Hey everybody, look at me. I'm a game. This is what's cool about me. You want to try to do that within like the first 2 seconds. Is show something cool, say something cool that people are going to be like, okay, I might be interested in watching another 15 seconds of this video. Shortly after that, you want to obviously put in your game title, your company logo. You can do that first. You don't have to do the hook first. You can do one or the other first. It doesn't matter too much. You just kind of have to feel that out with the pacing of your video and your music. But yeah, put your game title and your company logo in there. Just establish your brand after they've seen this cool thing that you and your team made. Then we got the trailer body. This is your meat and potatoes of your game. Your source footage, any cutscenes you might have for your game, voiceover, narrative, key features, and endorsements. Like if your game got reviewed by Kotaku, or if your game got reviewed by IGN and they said, oh, this game was pretty decent, you know, you can put that at the end of your trailer. Closing punch. Yeah, so after your trailer body, which is like the bulk of your trailer, which you probably don't want to exceed about 2 minutes. Your closing punch is basically the last thing that you want to say. It's like a summarious statement that you're making about your game. It can be anything from, all right, this is an epic boss. You know, this is like a cool statement. You know, just it's a nice way to close up and package up your advertisement for your game. And then at the end, of course, show the title screen again, establish your brand, and marketing information. You know, when the game is coming out, where you can find it, your subscribe button, social media, so on and so forth. So, with that said, I was hoping we could take a look at a game trailer that I think represents all of these things quite well. I want to thank Jerison for showing me this video because I did not even know it existed until a couple of weeks ago. I know it's weird. Oh, that's weird. I just messed it up. Okay. Wait. It's showing up here. So. Okay. We'll go. All right. So here's their opening. You know, they're showing off their awesome graphics. Start off with that upbeat, epic music. Then you realize it's a fishing game. We're into the trailer body here. So the only thing that I would have changed about that trailer is I would have had the fish be like a little tiny fish that he holds up at the end. That's the only thing I would have done different. But that was great. And the reason I think this trailer is great is because of the contrast that's in it. Like when an artist is developing a painting, he wants his colors to pop, and he does that by creating a lot of contrast values in it. And that's what this developer or developers did for their trailer is they took something that's supposed to be highly relaxing and enjoyable and that people go out to breathe the fresh air, and they hyped it up with freaking like metal techno and just like made it this bizarre thing. And they did that all through music and pacing and timing, and it's really cool. And like the complex fish AI system, it's also kind of, it's like an ironic statement. It's like fish are considered to be pretty dumb creatures, but here's a complex AI system for a fish. So it can't be that hard to, I guess, recreate the fish intelligence. All right, so let's just go through them all real quick again. All right, so you got your ESRB and disclaimers. It's a legal requirement to post ESRB rating before ads for your video games. Not doing so could put you at risk, and market platforms like Steam require. You can find more information on esrb.org about how to do that. They'll give you a questionnaire on details about your game, and they'll basically output, they'll send you a rating for what they think it is. Make sure to answer all of those questions honestly. Any legal disclaimers should also be put before or after your trailer. Already went over that. All right, your attention grabbing hook. The first 10 seconds are the most important part of your trailer. Like I said, this is when you want to grab people. This could be your only opportunity. I developed a trailer once that had a 3% retention rate, and that basically means that people clicked away from it within, I can't remember. It's like 5 or 10 seconds or something like that. So, we've all had our failures, and you want to make sure that you are immediately engaging your person. Don't monetize your game trailer. This should be a no-brainer, but you're developing an ad, so don't put an ad before your ad. I actually did this after a year and a half of having my CG trailer out because it was getting a lot of views, but don't do that. All right. Amazing graphics. So if your game has amazing graphics, we're indie developers, so a lot of times, that's sort of in the eye of the beholder of what amazing actually is. But if you feel like graphics, like what's that game that just came out? The Cuphead, right? Cuphead. That's that game has amazing graphics and it was done by a 2-person team. So if you feel like graphics are the token part of your game, then show those immediately and get people to be like, oh, this is great. Professional voiceover is a great way to get people hooked immediately. If you develop an indie game that has high quality professional voiceover, that's gonna pop out at people because not everybody does that. Now, I underline professional here because a lot of times when we're in the indie community, we're tempted to have our roommate who we think has a good voice to voice act in our game for us. I would highly advise against that. When you're making a game, you want to root for your roommate and everything, and you want him to get his name out there. But if you don't feel like it's going to reflect well upon your game, especially in your trailer, which is your single opportunity to say, "Hey, world, care about my game," then you want to definitely find a professional for that. And you can do that. VoiceActingAlliance.org or .com, I can't remember, is a great place to find amateur voiceover artists that sound professional, people that are good, and they're not known. So, yeah, upbeat and/or dramatic music. We saw a lot of that. Saw a lot of that in the fishing trailer. It doesn't always have to be upbeat. Sometimes you're developing a game that's very Tai Chi. What's that one game where they're never mind, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, there's some games that are very lax, and that's what you want to market. You want to market this game as being something that's a little bit more lax, and certainly, want to have your music reflect your game. So, witty, humorous, or shocking open narrative. Anything to create that shock value and get people engaged. All right. Ensure you have a professional-looking or clean-looking art for your logo. If you don't, ensure that your logo is so bad that it is meme-worthy, like the Dirty Bird Fried Chicken logo. That's not a game logo, by the way, but it is definitely something that is so bad that it catches your attention. So you want to display this for no longer than probably 3 to 5 seconds, and bonus points for animated logos. Animated logos make your company and your game look a little bit more professional, like you care. All right, so then we get into the meat and potatoes, the trailer body. So how do we prepare a game trailer? The first thing that you want to do is, once you get towards the end of your development cycle, when your game is, you finalize the art and the music and the sound effects and things like that, record your game constantly during testing or during play sessions, and just to maximize the amount of source footage that you have to draw upon. Then you want to kind of divide up your source footage and label it based off of what parts of the game this is at, so that you can easily bring that stuff back together later on when you're going in and putting your scenes together in the trailer program or the video development program. So like I said, every game is different, so every marketing approach should be unique. Emulating existing form and structure is good, but make it your own. So what do I mean by that? Basically, what I mean is, don't be afraid to go out there and see what people have already done that has been successful or are already doing, and kind of follow their structure and emulate off of it. I did this for our Kickstarter trailer, and I'll show you guys this video here in a little bit, but Planetary Annihilation had a very successful Kickstarter, and when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I just watched their video, and they had this kind of Starship Troopers, narrator kind of vibe going on for their trailer, and that's what I decided to do for our Kickstarter trailer. So yeah, don't be afraid to go out there and see what other people are already doing that have been successful. Keep your game trailer in the back of your mind during your entire game development process. This is something that a lot of people don't do, but it's especially important I believe, for the creative developer on any game, is to make a mental note of key points in the game or key assets in the game that they think will be great to bring in later on and use in the trailer itself. And that'll help you draw on a lot of marketing ideas. The other thing is, you want to find your video theme. If your game is an RPG, you want to use your story and narrative to drive your trailer. If your game is a PvP first-person shooter, find amazing moments and source footage to sell your game. I remember shortly after Battlefront, not 2, but the newer Battlefront came out, there was this video of Darth Vader, like somebody posted this, it was like in-game screen capture. Darth Vader, he chucked his lightsaber at an X-Wing that was flying by and killed the X-Wing, and this had like 3 million views on YouTube. It was awesome, but it wasn't in the trailer. Like if I knew that that could happen in my game, that would be something that I would want to put in my trailer. You know, it's just like an epic moment. So kind of just figure out what your theme is of your game. Like, has anybody seen the trailer for Crawl? Yeah. Okay, Crawl's a very popular indie game. Basically, their trailer was narrative driven. They used voiceover narrative from their game in their trailer, and then layered video on top of that, you know, to make scenes that made sense with what the narrator was saying. And that's how they were able to sell their trailer very well. Don't be frugal with your footage. This is a big one. A lot of indie developers want to hoard cool parts of their game because they don't want to spoil it. I would say, with the exception of the boss of the game, show anything and everything that you can to get your game out there these days. If other people are doing it, you should be too. It's not, I've never seen anything in any trailer comments be like, oh, thanks for spoiling the game for me, you know, because somebody put a boss in there that was going to be in later on in the game. Find the humor. Comedy is memorable. This is especially important for games that don't have a story. Like we saw the fish game. The fish game doesn't have a story. It's just all about going out and catching fish. So they have a lot of freedom to market their game however they want to. So if you have a game that doesn't have a story, that isn't a comedy, feel free to try to make it funny. Like the Costers did this with Crashlands. Their game, I didn't play their game, but I don't believe it was a comedy. Was it?
It is.
It is?
It is.
Okay. All right. Well.
They're known for very silly games.
Okay. Well, never mind. So they marketed their game as it is in the trailer. But you could do that. You could kind of have a witty, silly narrative for any trailer that's out there. Shock your audience if you can. I don't mean like die antword shock your audience, but there are a lot of different ways that you can approach that. And we already talked about professional voiceover a little bit, having a narrator go over your video. Closing punch. So this is your last chance to seal the deal. Create a memorable few seconds, convey something epic, hilarious, or form a perfectly tuned summary of your game and its goal. So the fish game, held up a fish, had the fish in the guy's office overlooking the city. I mean, that's when we go out fishing, that's kind of the goal of fishing, is to catch a fish and take a cool picture of it so that we can show people. This is a snapshot or a screenshot from a trailer that I did for Iggy's Egg Adventure. The last frame, or the last clip of the trailer I did was having the T-Rex chase Iggy because it was the coolest boss I thought was in his game, and it was just a cool way to close it out. All right, title screen and marketing info. This is pretty basic stuff, but this is for the game that I did. This is the last screen for StarCraft Universe. You want to show your title screen again right before this, and then on the marketing info, you want to have your release date, like we said, Open Beta Live, your company name, which I didn't put on here. Huh, how about that? Company website, uppeoplearts.com. I guess I did put my company name since it's on the website there. Social media, we got our Twitter, Facebook, Indiegogo stuff, subscribe button, and use annotations. Does everybody know what annotations are? Like, if anybody doesn't know, they're basically just like boxes that you draw inside of the YouTube video program, and you can create links within the boxes that overlay your different content areas on your video, and then when people go to click them, it'll redirect them to your website or whatever else you have up there. So use the tools you know. So Photoshop for text and graphic design, OBS Studio for screen recording, Blender for motion design and editing. Those are that combo right there is a pretty cheap way to start developing videos if you haven't already done it. If you've never done it before, if you've never done video development before and you've worked on a game, I would say for over a year that you're looking to market professionally, I would say that now might not be the best time for you to do that. You might want to find somebody that, that has created video game trailers professionally before, because you just don't want to risk, you know, at the 1 yard line, not being able to sell something that you've worked thousands of hours on because you aren't experienced at video editing. And I mean, a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are great video game designers by the time they get done with their game, but they've never touched a video editing program and they have no experience with marketing. So just be careful there. All right, small budget quick trailer. So this is how you can probably get a video editor to make your trailer for about $500, $600 with this method, or you might even be able to do this yourself. Like for a GameJam game, I would say that this would be a great exercise to develop a trailer for your GameJam game, because you can do it within 3 to 5 days. Basically what you do is you're going to browse all of your game assets and throw anything that you think could be used in a game trailer in a folder, your UI, your sound, your art, visual effects. You're going to record an entire run through of your game, dividing up the videos and labeling them in a folder. Purchase the license to or create your own music that you think will reflect your game well to be used in the trailer. Sit there and listen to that music on loop and stare at your game assets and source footage until something comes to you. I'm not kidding. I actually do this, and a lot of times I'll just kind of meditate on the music that's going to be in my trailer, and it'll help me visualize what I want to put into the trailer itself. So then what you're going to do is you're going to layer your video cuts on top of the music. You can time the pacing of your video cuts to the counts in the music, and this will create an automatic audio-visual synergy for your trailer. So a lot of people don't have a great grasp of pacing in videos, and what this will allow you to do is music is already inherently has good pacing, so it'll allow your video to sync up with the good pacing in your music. Highlight your game feature text and or voiceover with matching visuals, and as always, save the best cut for last. Then display title screen and marketing information. So this is a small budget example trailer. I did this for a friend in the indie game development community who made a game called Iggy's Egg Adventure. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles in this kind of trailer, but
rated T for teen.
Be done very quickly. So the last thing is this is especially important, I think, if you're doing something like a Kickstarter campaign or a social media campaign to do crowdfunding, is you want to market yourself. Because even if you've gotten people to care about your game, as an independent developer, I think it's important that you get people to care about you. Like, you guys saw what nobody likes him, but you saw what Phil Fish was able to do by being on Indie Game, and just kind of how he had a huge personality, and people were sort of attracted to that. And you know, the Costers kind of did this a little bit too for when they were developing their game, is they wanted to tell their personal story and things that were going on in their life while they were developing their game, and that's perfectly okay. And that is something that that I did for my game as well, and something that I think that if you have a compelling story that's going on with you or in your life, and you want to get people to care about you and your product, you can do that. You can do that through video, and so basically, you want to tell people your story as it relates to game development. If you don't think your personality is very marketable, tell your story as a narrative through voiceover. Write a script and layer related video over the dialogue. So I sort of did this in my Kickstarter campaign here. Whoops. Damn it.
Sorry, yeah, we have to back it up.
Yeah, it's supposed to start at 1:35.
Incoming transmission.
Shortly after the release of StarCraft 2, Ryan Winzen began using his program editor, prototyping mods mimicking the likes of Star Fox and Final Fantasy. Realizing the engine and assets were flexible enough to create an experience like no other, Ryan focused his efforts on the construction of a world of StarCraft, uploading the fruits of his labor to the Earth's worldwide computer network so that other like-minded Terrans could enjoy his efforts via optical transmission. Capturing the interest of gamers across the planet, even the video game giant itself took notice, and Blizzard Entertainment extended its blessing to Ryan, inspiring him to continue his work at StarCraft Universe. Realizing his purpose and knowing his journey was impossible alone, Ryan used his newfound notoriety to begin forming a team that could complete his vision. Beginning with the Terran programmer, Philip Millmeyer, more talented members were brought into the fold, synchronizing their abilities by a network of radiating pylons. In July of 2011, the StarCraft Universe team unleashed their first official gameplay trailer. The incredible reception among StarCraft fans served only to intensify the team's resolve. Making their clan an official business organization, Winzen dubbed the newly formed company after their abrupt beginnings, and Upheaval Arts was born. For 2 years, the team worked furiously to develop core systems and player-side content before releasing the game's single-player prologue to a receptive public in February 2013. Despite a successful test release and overwhelming praise from the public, however, Upheaval found itself depleted of minerals and Vespian gas. Unable to focus all their time and energy on the game's completion, they now seek the aid of those who share their vision. Should their distress call fall on the deaf of heart, on the blind of faith, however, my world may never be seen again. Aid us, Terrans, and together, we will shape the foundations of the universe enough to rattle even the dark voice's bones, and sorrow of evil.
Alright, so if you're comfortable enough with putting your story out there and kind of using yourself as a way to help sell your game, then by all means do so. I realize that not everybody has like a crazy story like that, but I think if people take a good hard look at their lives, they'll realize that they do have a really interesting, compelling story that they could probably figure out a way to get the world to care about. So, that said, any questions?
Is that presentation like you can email people?
Say again?
Can you email that presentation to someone? I mean,
Oh, just the text?
no, I mean just the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can do that.
So you mentioned if you're not experienced with the tools to make a trailer, hire a professional, what would you say is like a good path to go from someone who's not ready to being that professional so they can do it themselves if they want to?
That's a great question. So I went to school for interactive design, and I learned how to do Adobe After Effects, and that's all I've done is work in After Effects. Like all the videos that I've done are After Effects, and a lot of professional video software developers will tell you that's not a great way to start these days. Like there's better programs that are out there, and that's why I listed those three: Photoshop, OBS, and Blender, because that's what a lot of people are doing now that don't have experience, just to kind of get in and just start kind of tinkering around with those programs first. After Effects is a pretty advanced video software program, so I don't feel like I'm particularly qualified to tell you how to go from nothing to being good. I just, this presentation was more about, just like philosophy and structure of making videos themselves. So, sorry, I can't answer your question better.
Do you have some possibly free software that you can suggest that you can pull down offline?
Blender's free, right?
Yeah.
Blender's free.
Yeah.
For like movie editing and things like that.
Blender has a video editor.
Yeah, Blender has a video editor inside of it. So that would be a good one. Anything else? I'm sure there's probably a ton out there. If you just Google free video editors, you'll probably find something good.
Randy, do you have a suggestion? Sorry. Do you have a suggestion for a good free video editor?
That's all I really have.
Do you like Blender?
I haven't used it, but that's all I really know about it. Blender is designed to be a complete suite for 3D rendering and processing everything from start to finish. So it has a pretty comprehensive editor, but it might be harder to pick up. But there's YouTube videos.
Yeah, if you do go that way, don't wait till you can.
Yeah.
Some of the video editing tools are definitely hard to find.
Jenny, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I just want the ESRB thing. I thought I'd just mention, like, in case anyone's concerned, I think you only have to add it if you have an ESRB rating.
What do you mean?
If you have an ESRB rating, you do have to show it at the beginning of your trailer, and we've had them contact us once because we forgot.
Yeah.
So you definitely do, but if you do not have it, you don't have to have one to publish on Steam.
Oh.
Okay. So I was just pointing that out in case anyone was worried. Like, if you don't have one, you don't have to have one to publish on Steam, but it is strongly recommended. And
So I have a question for you now.
Yeah.
So why did people get? Why would anyone get an ESRB rating if they don't have to? Just for parents' peace of mind, or?
yeah,
Certain stores won't let you sell it on their store unless you have an ESRB.
Okay.
yeah, we eventually broke and got one for when we published to consoles, but that was the only time we've gone to get one. It's encouraged for Steam, but not fully required.
Okay.
So you don't have to just declare that you don't have an ESRB rating? I've seen some trailers do that.
You don't have to. It's specifically a store-only thing.
Safer to do it.
Someone on the chat on Twitch is wanting to know if you have any suggestions for tutorials on After Effects or people.
Video Copilot is a great one for After Effects. It's actually the video tutorial site, and you can also buy a lot of cool third-party assets there that you can use in your trailers.
So we have to do the other part of the talk. So we can get one more question.
Where do you find professional video editors?
So say what?
Where do you find professional video editors?
Well, like I said, I only work in After Effects, so that is a professional video editor.
The people, like person.
People.
Oh, where would you find professional video editors? People. All right, I got it. I'm one if you need. I can give you my card. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Just a guess, I would think something like Upwork might have something like that.
Oh, okay, they might, yeah, I can do that.
All right.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I'm gonna just unplug this thing. I think I can do that. Well, I'm just. Yes, I can do it. Well, what I don't. Yeah, we'll see. I'm unplugging back. That could be fun. All right, we're good. I do have 2 suggestions. If you don't have software for all that stuff, if you have a Mac, iMovies is on the Mac, and it's real easy. It lets you have separate audio tracks in your video and splice videos together and stuff.
Oh yeah, and GarageBand for the audio.
Yeah, you can use GarageBand for the audio. And if you have Windows, there's Windows Media thingy that lets you, what's it called?
Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah, Windows Movie Maker. Yeah, they're not great, but I think they're really good because you can just drag in assets and then like line them up. And I bring them up because at the GameJam, it's not a good time to learn After Effects. Because first of all, you're probably going to pirate it if you do that, and you might not want to do that, depending on who you are.
I think there's also either Premiere or After Effects Express, which is not, it still costs money, but it's only like $80 or $100 instead of thousands.
Yeah.
So really quick, so I forget what they call it, I think it's Creative Club. So it's a subscription model, which can make access to things like Photoshop and After Effects and all that kind of stuff super cheap. So instead of like $100 or $200 or whatever, it's like $20 a month.
But for the GameJam, don't go and spend a whole bunch of money
Yeah.
just to get your video.
Don't do that.
That's the important thing that we want to reiterate. It's like just like open up QuickTime or open up something.
And if you can't find something, YouTube does have an editor. So you can upload the different clips and actually cut it together. It's not easy to use and it's not good, but if you're stuck.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if you couldn't tell, we're opening up more of the GameJam Q&A. This is Catherine, and I'm Wes, and we've been organizing the event along with Weston and Ginny and all the other co-op board members, and a lot of help from all over. I want to say something because I don't know if you know this or anyone else. I got a text from my wife tonight, and it says, you got 4 heavy boxes today, I can't pick them up. And I said, nice. What's in those 4 heavy boxes is Soylent. So Soylent is a sponsor for the Global Game Jam.
Is it Soylent green though?
Yes, I hope not, but I'm just going to put it out there and just let people take it if they want. But yeah, so we will have 4 enormous boxes of Soylent at the event for you to try. And hopefully we don't run out of toilet paper like we tend to. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. It's an exclusive to this event. Yeah. So
what's up?
The Twitch chat, someone wants to know if we need any volunteers.
If we need any volunteers? We have a lot of volunteers. It's hard to say for sure because we are switching the event location. And with the switch of the event location, a lot of the stuff is being taken care of by the venue. But I'm worried that we don't know what to expect because it's totally new. So most likely we will not. And if we do, we have a bunch of people. Have them. If they're on Slack, have them send a message to like one of the board members, and we can let them know.
And if they're not on the Slack, they can send an email to leadership@stgamedev.com because we all check that. So.
Yeah, what's generically more helpful usually is sticking around after the end. So clean up. So
yeah, we do need volunteers at the end to clean up no matter what because there's going to be a lot of mess.
People make a lot of mess. Any other questions?
So it's more of a technical difficulty. So I went to register today, and I apparently forgot my password. And so I clicked the forgot password link, and I did it 4 times, and it, like just throughout the day, and it never sent me an email.
Is this on like the global, website, the big global website?
Are you sure you did use a new email?
No, because I tried to create a new account with my username and email, and said both were already taken.
I have no control over that website.
Well,
but can you email them or something?
So here's what, did you sign up with Facebook in the past?
Yes.
Okay, so here they disabled Facebook as a login method. And I found this out last night when I was trying to sign in. So what you need to do is go to a past year, find a game you made, or our location, find your name in the list to get exactly what the name is. It's probably, because I don't know if they can look it up by your email. But if you look up your name, which will be the name that you actually have on Facebook, and you copy that, and then you recover your account through that name, then it'll probably go to the right email. Because I'm not sure if
both the name and the email. And like it's the email I use now, and I haven't got it.
Okay.
It sounds like it may be a bigger thing. I just want to make sure if I can't do that, can I still show up?
Yes, you can still come.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can come. We prefer you to register just so you know how many people are coming, and like for uploading and stuff, you might need to like make a different. Okay. Because that's when it's gonna become an issue. Is like for uploading. So if you don't care if you're like on that thing, but if you have like a second email, when it gets to like actually like uploading the game, you might want to do that. Yeah, or just have a team member upload it.
The other thing is, I wouldn't create a new account just to sign up.
Yeah.
I would just like come to me at the event. I've got the Slack access, and I can ask them how to resync accounts and stuff like that. Cool. So, because you want all of your games from past years to be tied to your account.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, was there another question? What's up?
What if you, say, would like to see what the game jam's about, but you can't participate for one reason or another? Like, would you still be able to say, go and sort of check it out, walk around, see what people are doing, talk to people, that sort of thing?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to do that. If you're gonna do that, like if the best times to come would be like Friday for the kickoff, and so you can see like the whole presentation, everyone getting excited, and then the theme and everything. And then also like maybe coming on Sunday, because everyone will kind of be like winding down and like finishing up their games, and then you can like see all the game demos, which another is a super exciting part. But yeah, you're more than welcome to come whenever and just like see what people are up to and everything.
And would you need to sign up to do that?
Preferably yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The most important part of that is if you do decide to stay, just be honest with your team about your commitment level, so that you don't end up, like Jenny said, like saying you're going to do something for a game and then not showing up the next day or something. Just be honest with your commitment level and like anything that you might keep you from going.
I wasn't planning on actually participating because I cannot.
That's cool.
Another from Twitch, I see that, asked, are the presentations only going to be videos again?
No. We're gonna do demos and stuff. If you, again, like have a large team or have like the capacity to make a video, that's definitely really nice. I think, again, if it like makes sense for time management, I definitely would encourage videos, because then you're less likely to have technical difficulties. But if that is for some reason not possible, like definitely still don't feel obligated to make a video, basically. Or also you could like make a video, another like in between is if you just like want to make a video that's just gameplay with like no sound or anything and just talk over it, that's a good like in between as well. I saw we had another question.
Is registration individual, or do you have to know your team?
Individual, so you do not have to have a team ahead of time. You can just show up on Friday, and then we're gonna have like a brief like team forming session. And then you can find your team then, and we'll do some like ice breaking in the beginning, so you can kind of meet people and see what their different skills are. I personally actually recommend not coming with the team in mind, because then you can meet new people, and then it's a really like fun and interesting experience. So yeah, definitely don't need to register as a team, and don't need to have a team ahead of time. You can just come by yourself and meet people.
Any questions? Does everyone know what a game jam is? Maybe no one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still cool with us hanging out over night on
Yes.
Friday, right?
Yep.
And Saturday, you can hang out. And again, it's at the Millennium Center at Elmsall, so it's not the same place this year. Hopefully it'll be a lot cooler. I think there's parking.
It's on like the other side of the campus.
Yeah,
So-
well, it's still on the north side. It's just like,
Yeah, the parking is totally different. You have to, instead of going up that west drive, you're going to go up some dudes in there.
The East Drive?
No, here. I'll show you where it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would it be possible to get like a map or something up on the site or somewhere?
It's already done.
It's on the Google Game Jam site, yeah.
What?
There's like it's like latitude, longitude location, isn't it?
No, there's a bunch of stuff.
There's a bunch of stuff?
Yeah, I added actual directions. So you'll get an email if you're signed up.
Signed up.
Also, I need to fix.
Through the website, you'll get an email.
STL Dev or the meetup site.
STL. If you signed up through the not neither. If you signed up through the Global Game Jam site.
Yeah, so like if you registered.
If you have registered,
if you
we'll
click
send
that
an email out to people to let them know final information. Really, this is the most important thing. We'll also post this on the very front page of Global Game or of STLGameJam.com. But these are the directions. So it's Grobman Drive, and basically, if you look at the picture, this is the west drive that you were using, and the new one is I don't know what this one's called. You should probably know. And then this is Grobman Drive. You go up here, take a left, and then you park in this open lot. And I think if this is full, you can park right over here in one of these two parking structures.
Two parking garages.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like 4 stories each.
Can we use the garages?
You can. It's probably safer to park here if you can. But this is where I think the overflow is. So I hope it is. It's on the map. So yeah, you should be able to park in it.
Just like curiosity, kind of new to the group. Just like curiosity, what's like the most successful game that's came out of this game? I realize it's development. Ones like has there been ones that have had commercial success, or?
I think.
Do you mean just locally, or do you mean all total?
I'm just curious. I don't know.
Super Meat Boy came from a Global Game Jam, didn't it?
Did it?
I think it started as it.
Yeah, a lot of times we end up like.
From the St. Louis one.
From the St. Louis one, I think a couple of my favorites are Jumpy McRunface. And Flip You came from
oh yeah, I did. Flip You was really good. And a lot of big things too. You get out of a game jam, it's sort of just like an actual team and everything, I'm
just assuming all that. I was just curious as to.
Yeah.
So butterscotch is.
It was Flip You and Jumpy McRunface.
Yep.
So the butterscotch, the first time they made a game called Top Fight of the Gods, and the sequel. They did release an Android store. They did make some money after that.
It's good.
Yep, Top Fight 2. Yeah. So we've had a couple things. For some reason, our community tends to do weird stuff that they don't want to keep working on.
I realize that's not real.
Yeah, but it's
fun.
I realize that's not really the intent of the game.
No, it is. It is the intent. The intent is what you want to get out of it. And you just need to try to steer everything that happens that weekend in whatever direction you want generally.
Which is a really good question to ask on Friday night for no teams to play out.
Yep.
Just a practical question to go along with the parking on that. The doors will be opened and locked. Will that be on the side or will that be part of the opening ceremony?
It'll be part of the opening ceremonies on Friday. If you are under 18, you have to leave at 10 and then come. And I'm just not for your, but you have to leave at 10 and you have to be accompanied by a guardian the whole time. And just come back the next day, which is just a liability thing with Global Game Jam and with Umzel and everybody. So, yeah. So.
Is everyone excited for the Game Jam that's going to be there?
Yeah, I'm
awesome. Is there any other? There'll be T-shirts. We have all the there's no missing T-shirts. So.
You've had this problem before?
Last year.
There's late T-shirts. All the T-shirts. We have T-shirts and stickers, and we have the new location.
Yep.
So.
Oh, I brought this email up to talk about. I have the food schedule. in case anyone is curious. I hope I still have it up here. So the first night, we're going to get pizza.
Yeah.
And it's catered by whoever Umzel's catering people are.
Is the deck side?
Yeah, I think so. The second morning, we're getting bagels. The afternoon, we're having like little mini sandwiches. The evening, we're having pasta with marinara or meat sauce. And then the Sunday, we're going to have donuts. And then in the afternoon, we'll have more sandwiches. So basically, every meal is covered. And it's thanks to sponsors such as Riot Games. Maybe you've heard of them. And yeah. And they're down, up and down this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Umzel, Riot, NVIDIA, Butterscotch.
I'm sure we'll hear all of them many times on Friday.
So, yep.
So speaking of food, well, when will coffee be available?
No one drinks coffee. We always have a whole bunch, and no one drinks it. But this time, it's being catered in. We're going to have a whole bunch, so you need to drink a whole bunch so that we just use up.
Yeah. I got you, fam.
What's that?
What's the bathroom situation? Because you don't say.
Yeah. So the place that we're going to be is really, really super beautiful.
Oh yeah, there's like a bunch of, it's like 3 stories, and so there's a bathrooms on every floor. I think there's even so there's like 2 bathrooms on every floor, and then there's like general neutral bathrooms in addition to those bathrooms.
Yeah.
I looked at the map. There was a lot of bathrooms.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of restaurants in there, but I think they're all closed for the weekend too. So.
Are we going to have like a room that we can like record sound and such in? That'll be quieter.
Do you know the answer? So we have the
Besides my car.
3rd floor Sentry rooms, which is, if you've been to like a conference, and they have those rooms that you can put walls in between, that's what the main jam room is going to be. It's going to be a giant, like 3-sectioned room with a stage on one side, so that we can stay in the same room to do demos and kickoffs, so we don't have to go back and forth between places. And outside of that, there's a hallway where we're going to serve food, and we're going to have like people sign in. Then across that hallway, there are 3 like dark rooms that we're going to designate for sleeping, or if we run out of space, we'll have jam rooms in there. But that one of those would be your best bet as far as recording audio. Yeah, and it's an enormous building that you can probably find. Well, I don't want to say anything because I don't know what the rules are. But yeah.
Office space.
Oh. No, that's not.
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Any tips and tricks for newbies?
For what?
For newbies.
For newbies? I think, like I said, a lot of stuff is already covered. Just make sure you don't try and do too much. I think the big thing is the main point is to have fun. Again, you want to finish your game and you want it to be cool, but have realistic expectations. It's 48 hours, especially if it's your like first game jam. It's not going to be perfect. So really just make it more so about having fun. Yeah, and just like trying to make sure, you know, your team's having fun and all of that.
So I got pragmatic tips if you want. So there is going to be like, what, 300 people or so?
250 usually?
250.
So,
Last year I think there
there's a lot of
was
people
over
taking
300.
that.
Was it?
So you want to have your tools and whatnot downloaded now. Yeah, or have
Put Unity on a thumb drive.
Yeah, or on a thumb drive or something, because the internet is not going to play friendly with you. And you're going to especially feel it when you're trying to upload your game, video, whatever, what have you. So also when you're submitting your stuff, you'll probably do it a little earlier, so it actually goes up on time. Also, yeah, like mostly what people have said, just keep it really small. Make sure everyone's on the same page. The last thing you want to find out is your artist has been drawing the scariest things you've ever seen, and you're making like a My Little Pony game or something like that. So just make sure that you're all in the same boat, same continent maybe. And you also might want to just like get some stuff together, like a bunch of sound effects, a bunch of music that's like common, royalty free and whatnot.
Version control very early is a good thing.
Yeah, and version control I would recommend, especially if your team's new, just keep it really simple. I'm a Git person, but that's because that's my job. I do not expect people to learn Git in the 24 to 48 hours you got, and you only really listen like after 12. So it's like, yeah, just realize that some people will have their focus elsewhere as well. And also, what will also probably happen is someone's going to fall into the role of team manager, almost, team mom. Listen to that person. Because they've got your eyes on you and like whoever else is going on the clock. So that's just a good idea.
Just be careful about imposing that on people who don't want that.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say the thing that generally causes me the most trouble is my teams, is people are not communicating often enough about like how far they are on what they're working on or what they're working on. So people end up creating a whole bunch of assets that are never going to end up being able to get used because programming is behind. Or someone's making a whole bunch of music that might not make it in. And that's not inherently a problem, but if you talk to each other very frequently, like every hour or two at the very, very least, then you mitigate a lot of that risk of like creating assets that aren't going to be used, and people can do things that are more valuable.
Oh, programmers, spend some time, budget some time to actually put the art in the game. Yeah. The artist will not be able to do this.
Yeah.
Yes. They're going to give you a thing, and they're going to be like, here, okay, I put it in the game now, please.
And that includes
you're
sound.
going to be like working on your like game mechanic AI thing, and you're going to be like, wait, when am I supposed to do this? Like, just remember that that's going to happen, and it's also your job.
Yeah, and it will also most likely not work the first time the way you expect it to work.
Just on that note, make sure the player character is pleased the first thing you do, because that's always one of the things you have to watch for an artist. Is that's the most bang for the buck from the development side, is having our player art. Everything else we can put placeholders in. We've got to have that.
Jenny had something?
I was thinking my hardest lesson for my first game jam was don't be seduced by the idea of like a really large team. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to remember to keep your team small, like 3 to 5 people. You might like have this big group form and you're like, oh, this is amazing, we'll get everything done. But no, project management will get harder, everything will get harder.
I like my 14-person team.
Here, you've talked a lot.
So I guess I have a question of, I know we're all supposed to be adults, but that never happens. So instead of, like, so what do we do if we need remediation? I know I should be good because I know I should be working with some friends, so hopefully, if they're become non-friends. But like, so for remediation, so instead of having a team mom, it's a team supernazi.
So I'm going to direct you to the co-op complex. So that is a thing that is also enforced with the little game. Also, you can find me or any of these guys, and we'll do our best. If it is between you and me, I will get one of these guys.
No, I don't think
Yeah, I would say you're not forced to stay with the team that you start with either.
Yeah.
Like if you're not having a good time and you're not feeling like you're learning anything or you're not meshing well with your team, just again, being honest with your team is the most important thing. So just tell your team, look, I know I told you guys I would do this. I'm not feeling it. I'm not gonna be able to get this done in time. I need to I'm out, or I need to find another team. This is not working well. You're not using the art I'm making, or that's happened a lot. Or the programmer's going too slow. We had some artists break off one year that were doing all the art for a resource management Diner Dash kind of game, and then the programmer was trying to learn C.
What?
So what ended up happening was they broke off and used GameMaker and actually made a really, really good game. And the guy that wanted to learn C made a game also, and he learned a lot. And everybody ended up coming out of the experience with a
a game at the end, and like not feeling like they wasted their time, and they got thrown into a situation where they were forced to learn something, and ended up like coming away twice as good because of it. So.
One more thing I want to add, not really about that, kind of about that. Sleep is important. Not sleeping makes people cranky and like can make it so that stuff happens more often. So I just want to make sure you sleep. I know it says 48 hours, but sleep is really important.
I know you mentioned dark room, but what is the sleeping arrangement like? Should you bring blankets?
Bring everything you would need to sleep. We don't provide like any cots or anything. It's just like, you know, there might be a spot on the floor somewhere. Bring some sleeping
I normally
bags.
sleep under a table. You don't get stepped on that way.
I would hardly recommend sleeping in your own bed at home if you are near your house at all. That's what I do, and I love it so much.
Then you get like good sleep.
Yeah.
You know, that it might be worth it, however long, unless you live like an hour away, then like I still would recommend doing it, but like that time is probably worth it just to go home.
Or getting a hotel even. Like it's not fun.
When I was an hour and a half away, I brought a sleeping bag.
There's another Twitch question. Since Riot is sponsoring it, is there going to be a room with them like streaming the LCS thing? Do you know?
This year, there's not going to be a specific Riot room. So, yeah.
Probably not then.
No, probably not. Is there any free skins?
If you get a Riot room, we don't have skins.
This is the room layout, by the way. I don't know if you like said that, but yeah, this is what the room's gonna look like to kind of give you an idea. So it's one giant room. We have a bunch of tables for everyone to hang out in.
Yeah. These tables are cut like diagonally, so like 4 people on this side, 4 people on this side, or like 3 people or 1 person. There's not really going to be hard rules on this stuff. We're also going to have extra tables in the back in case these get filled up, and we're just going to be flexible and kind of go with the flow. But this is the initial layout.
Jim, if you're going to be doing something noisy and we're trying to record, is there a room for that?
Yeah, there's 3 rooms over here, and it sounds like one of those will probably end up being recording. So at least.
If that doesn't work, then you can take a comforter and go out to your car and put it over your head, and it'll stop all echoes.
What's the experience?
And you'll stay warm.
Cool.
I just want to make one clarification too. Like, you don't have to make games, like video games. So like if you're coming in and you don't know any of these tools, then do pen and paper RPG or do like a text-based something. So you don't have to do things with 3D or 2D assets, anything like that.
So someone asked if there was a profitable game. There was actually a card game involving dragons, and which was the name, where they actually did take their little GameJam game and publish it, and actually did
That was
good.
funky. It was originally Dragons when they did it on the GameJam, and then it was Dragons when they did it.
Right. So yes, and
Board games are really fun to make. Also, another thing, like I know that Twine is really easy to pick up. If you just want to do like a really like narrative-driven like thing, and you just want to like type and write a really cool story and throw maybe some pictures or something in there, that's perfect.
Game Salad, Construct 2, any of those are real easy to learn if you don't know how to program.
Yeah.
Stencil.
Yeah. Again, I program for a living, and I prefer to make board games and game jams. So.
Yeah. Board games are really fun, and I don't think it's any like it's not a revelation that like one of the most successful games that come out of here has been a board game.
Yeah.
Because you get something working really quick, and then you have the whole weekend to iterate on it with feedback from 200 people. So it's
even if it's 2 in the morning and they have had 20 cups of coffee.
They can play it.
Yeah. Cool. So we have 5 more minutes till 9, and I kind of don't want to stay longer than 2 hours. So we can take one more question if anyone has anything.
Do you bring alcohol?
No.
No.
Hard no. It's hard to Yeah, that's more of a scatter game thing. Cool. All right.
Sweet.
Well,
woo!
Plug this. So, before we go, I want to say thank you to everyone, Woodsy Studio, Ryan, and everyone here who's participating in the Game Jam. The 4 of you aren't. You're all right too. So yeah, thank you again to Riot for sponsoring the event and for hosting us tonight. So thanks everyone.